Hello back, everyone. Oh, I have Jonathan. Hi, Jonathan. So I'll let you take the chairing from here on.
Okay, thanks very much. So we've heard earlier today from the developers about some of the challenges that they've been facing and overcoming, and one of those is how to bring together the CSP and its thermal storage into a world where all eyes are focusing on battery energy storage, and that seems to be crowding out consideration in many people's minds of other options. So we have a panel here who will be talking with you about how these can be integrated, how their complementarities can be brought together. Heather, over to you.
Just switch on your mic, please, Heather.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining today. I'm very happy to moderate this session on dispatchable solar and the complementarity of CSP, thermal storage, PV, and batteries. And I think it's a nice, logical next step after the previous discussion we were all listening to. I'd like to invite our fantastic panelists to introduce themselves, and we will start in the order of their presentations. So Cristina Prieto, over to you to introduce yourself and to make your presentation.
Okay, thanks. And first, thank you for the opportunity to be panelists in this conference. Let me share my presentation. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. Can you make that into large screen,
yes,
please?
It was.
Perfect. You're
okay.
good.
Well, my name is Cristina Prieto. I am the head of innovation in Abengoa Energia. I have worked in the energy sector for more than 20 years, where the last 15 years I have been involved in the development of CSP technology with Abengoa. Also, I think you know what Abengoa does, but I would like to explain quickly which we do. We are an international company that apply innovative technology solutions for sustainability in the infrastructure, energy, and water sectors. Our portfolio include the following renewable technology. You can see PV, you can see CSP, you can see wind power, hydropower, hydrogen, battery energy system, thermal energy system. And what we do with our portfolio, how do we adjust it to the demand of the energy sector? The hybridization is the key solution that we offer, because hybridization with renewable technologies allow to benefit from the advantage of each of the technologies, as the low cost in wind or PV, or the high dispatchability in CSP. The hybridization offer better performance and greater energy independence for isolated network. If you hybridize your power system, you can expand existing network or start your transformation without interrupting its operation. And Abengoa experience allow to design and develop bespoke solution customized to a client-specific requirement to maximize value. However, the energy transition is not possible without the role of storage, and especially the role of the thermal heat storage, which is increasing in demand in the new energy market with high penetration of renewable energy. The thermal energy system is scalable and highly modular, and is capable of reaching large power capacity. Thermal storage can have long duration. It is cost effective with a high potential for development after a massive deployment. And in addition, it has a clear advantage. It can provide heat and energy. Solar heat for industrial processes is still far from being a standard, but the market has already grown to a considerable size. The CSP with thermal storage is a key product in the hybridization for generation solution, where the CSP with the storage can cover the period of demand that other renewable energy systems cannot afford per lack of resources. And CSP with TES can also give a new life of coal plant. And this is a critical issue because the new objective for reducing the carbon footprint is to dismantle this plant. Only in Europe, this means 296 plants and more than 33,000 employees. Therefore, the substitution of coal as fuel by other renewable sources such as solar with thermal storage in a configuration that use the existing power block achieve the objective of reducing emission without impact on energy delivery or local employment. And that is what we do. We offer this hybrid solution using our previous experience as a leader in the CSP sector with 34% of the solar share. We have more than 2,100 megawatt in parabolic trough collector in our portfolio. We have 200 megawatt of central receiver system in our portfolio, and we have more than 600,000 tons of molten salt in our portfolio. And furthermore, we have continuous innovation in the main key component of CSP and TS system with a test platform at relevant scale to validate new design, and where we implement also the new strategies to increase the reliability in CSP. Finally, we have in-house models calibrated with a commercial plan and capable of developing hybrid solutions that offer a reliable guaranteed production. And if we see a little more in detail some of the products that Abengoa had designed it, one example, well, Fernando has explained very well this morning the status of this project. This is a clear example of a hybrid product. This is the Cerro Dominador plant in Atacama. We are one of the EPC company in charge of this project, where we have a mixture between 110 megawatt of CSP. We have 4,900 thermal megawatt hour of thermal energy storage, 100 megawatt of PV, and 4 megawatt hour of battery storage. And this configuration is needed to reach a high capacity factor. In that case, this configuration can reach a capacity factor higher than 93%. And this is a solution oriented to oil and gas, mining, or steel industries areas where there is a flat curve of demand and they need a base load supply. Also, we have another examples of hybrid product in our portfolio where the TS system will have a relevant role in the future of this solution. One example is the hybridization in combined cycle. We have long experience in this area. Here you can see an example of Guadalsamal project where a combined cycle of 1,390 megawatt is hybridized with a parabolic trough collector plant of 50 megawatt, where we use thermal oil as heat transfer fluid, and where we are able to reduce the equivalent of 4 million barrels of oil during the course of the project. And also we are involved in different solar heat processes in refineries that are demanding more and more this solution. Here in this demand, they are requesting that part of the heat duty supplied by the existing heat transfer fluid now will be supplied by a solar plant. Here we can see different configuration with the solar plant is installed in series with existing facility that is in a standby while there are thermal resources. And finally, the last hybrid product that I want to explain is the decarbonization project that we have in Australia. The main goal of this project was to implement a development pathway for the hybridization of the existing ultra supercritical coal plant with solar. The solar coal hybrid plant operational principle was proposed considering the current commercialized technology for supercritical boiler. The current plant with a 300 megawatt boiler has the pressure and flow relationship fixed from 0 to 200 megawatt. And in this range, no additional steam can be added to the system from the solar solution. But about this 200 megawatt, the solar plant add additional steam to the system to increase the overall generation of the plant. The control philosophy for this ultra supercritical solar hybrid plant was studied and detailed. We had done an optimization of the number of heliostat, the TES, the thermal energy storage capacity, the optimization of the solar receiver capacity, and the optimization of the PV capacity, considering the ratio of capex and generation, considering the solar field annual energy dumping, and also considering the plant renewable ratio. Here you can see in the slide different operational profiles in different periods during the year, where we are able to reach almost 50% of share on a clear summer day. And roughly speaking, we can conclude that this plant can reduce around 30% of coal fuel, which means that we can reduce 30% of CO2 emission compared with the same capacity of the conventional coal-fired plant if we are in the east side of Australia. And in a second project with higher radiation, we have been able to increase the solar share at 37% with the reduction of fuel. And to conclude my speech, just to summarize that we are an expert in the hybridization of power plant, providing dispatchable and clean energy solution. We are able to provide a full wrap EPC plus services, integrating a wide range of technology and providing, that is very, very, very important, all necessary warranties for fulfill with the specification of the client. And well, Abengoa is one of the most experienced EPC contractor in the market, with the capability to provide affordable and reliable decarbonization solution for mining, for industrial, for isolated green, for energy market, what is demanded at this moment worldwide. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be ready for more questions after the session.
Thank you very much, Christina. That was an excellent presentation. And we'll move straight to Michael Geyer for his presentation. But first, I would like to say thank you to the 4 people who have already submitted questions online. And please keep those questions coming, because we can answer them virtually on screen while we're having the presentations if we'd like. And we welcome as many questions as there are. And Michael, over to you. Thank you.
Michael, we can't hear you. Can you please switch on your mic? There we go. Now we can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me? Okay,
Yes.
great. Well, first of all, great to be all with you, at least online, and not in Tunis. Myself, I'm Michael Geyer, and I'm kind of a dinosaur in CSP, doing CSP since 1981. And now, today, I am advisor to the German Aerospace Agency, the Aegis, that is an affiliate of Abengoa and Algonquin, and to Malta on high temperature storage systems. Now, I had the privilege to, let's say, develop the first CSP plant with a molten salt storage, the commercial one that was the Andasol 1. That was its development started in 2001 and is now in, well, was then later finished, I think, around 2009. And now, let's say the big challenge is, I mean, that has already been mentioned by all the previous speakers. What contribution can CSP with storage play? And I think the question is, let's say, the further background is that renewables have fallen so much in cost that they now are competitive, let's say, with fossil power. And there are the sunny places where coal plants are being closed just because they are too expensive, like is Chile or like is Spain. And then there are the other places like Germany, where still, let's say, the coal plants are more expensive than the renewables, where coal plants are cheaper electricity than the renewables, but which nevertheless want to exit from coal and convert, let's say, in the next 10, 20, 30 years, 100% to renewables. This means if we substitute baseload plants like in Germany, nuclear or coal, etc., very variable renewables, we will need terawatts of storage. And today the big question is, what will this storage be? I mean, we have heard that here World Bank, etc., they have a storage initiative, but almost everybody only has batteries on their screen. And the big question is if, let's say, batteries without any, let's say, synchronous abilities, etc., will be able to give the 100% or not, or if we will have some kind of thermal storage that may be used also in the transition from the coal age to the renewable age. So just here, one key message. I will not go through the details, and I think this is a discussion I always had with Luis and Crespo, and I appreciate for his input. Currently in Sunbelt countries, like in Morocco, like in Chile, like in South Africa, etc., with high radiation, CSP with molten salt storage is the most competitive solution compared to battery to PV, let's say with molten salt. But if we go beyond the Sunbelt, there, let's say, my motivation is to expand the CSP technologies, and that is especially the CSP storage technology, to countries that don't have sufficient sun, or where climate change didn't bring the sun yet. And here there is now in Germany a big discussion to convert coal plants into giant batteries. And there, together with the DLR and the RWE, we are investigating the possibility of adding molten salt storage to an existing coal plant where the boiler would coal boiler would be closed down in certain time, and where we would then use still the steam turbine, the grid connection, the facility, the permits, etc., to run this thermal plant, but with a molten salt thermal storage, and charge this with renewable electricity. So the idea is giving coal plants a second life with renewable energy and thermal storage. And how are we envisaging this? We start with an existing coal plant, and then we just add power to heat molten salt storage system, which is, as we have heard, has over 10 years of commercial track record in the CSP world, is bankable, is today, you can get it as state-of-the-art from recognized EPC contractors like Christina told, Abengoa and others. And this gives you the possibility of using of converting a coal plant into a storage plant. Now we envisage this as a first step because let's say the efficiencies you can get let's say 95% the heating with electric heaters, and then let's say 45% maximum of the conversion in the steam cycle, and so you have a round trip discharge of 45%. But in many places in Central European countries, you don't only use the electricity, but you also use for district heating and combined heat and power plants the heat. And then this is a very attractive solution for the power to heat and power. So this is the pilot demonstration, which now the DLR and RWE are investigating with the support of the North Rhine-Westphalia government. And then here I just wanted to give the outlook on the next step. And this next step is currently being developed by Malta Inc. Malta is a spin-off of the Google X with investors like Breakthrough Energy Ventures from the Bill Gates Fund. And they are developing a possibility to introduce a heat pump to heat up the molten salt, for example, with PV and with wind electricity. And by this, increasing the discharge efficiency from currently what I said, some 40% to over 60%. And so that would be the discharge cycle, and that would give the opportunity of introducing thermal storage with the CSP technologies beyond this sun belt in countries that are not blessed with high DNI. And so I wanted here to open with this contribution the discussion that, or the view that, let's say, in these countries, we shouldn't only look at lithium-ion batteries, but we also should consider and study the viability of using CSP thermal storage with heat pumps, for example, as storage systems. They have, let's say, contrary to the lithium-ion, tracks of 17 gigawatts of track record, are bankable today, and they would provide many additional service for the frequency stabilization, etc. So with this, I would like to close and just give this as, let's say, a creative input to the discussion on the storage technologies for tomorrow in the transition from fossil to renewable world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was great. And I want to point all of our panelists to some of the questions we're receiving online so we can maybe keep a dialogue. Christina, there are several for you if you feel like looking at the bottom of your screen and answering some of them. We'll also have some time at the end for a few minutes of questions. Thank you again, Michael. And let me switch now to Mark for his presentation, please, and an introduction.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
we can.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to those of us in the United States. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to present NREL's work for this panel discussion. I've already found the previous speakers very illuminating. My name is Mark Mijos. I have been with NREL for over 30 years. I am a similarly a dinosaur, similar to Michael, maybe not quite as old a dinosaur, but but a dinosaur nonetheless. I have managed the CSP program at NREL for quite some time now. I'm also the group manager for the Thermal Energy Systems group at NREL, and I'm also the operating agent for the Task 1 Solar Paces task within Solar Paces. Okay, I thought I'd start by a screenshot, excuse me, of a recent story that was provided by an online news service, Utility Deep Dive, that does get at this question in the US at least, and that is cheapest is not always best. And it's nice to see that, at least in the US, getting recognized. Concentrating solar power can beat lower price PV with new market rules, with the understanding that CSP does not have to be the lowest price technology. It just has to be recognized for its value. And so we do quite a bit of work in that area at NREL. I represent part of the solar program, the CSP part of the solar program, but NREL does quite a bit of work with grid integration of solar systems, of all renewable energy systems, and we're looking closer and closer at the hybridization of all those systems, and that's what I'm going to focus on in this discussion. So there's a number of tools, and I won't talk about all of these, but there's a number of tools that NREL has in its toolbox to look at simulation of CSP within the greater grid network. And we look at those tools all the way from the years of capacity expansion using our renewable electricity deployment system model, which I'll talk about, down through sub-hourly or hourly system modeling, and finally down to sub-hourly or hourly modeling of a specific concentrating solar power or PV system. And that's all. I'll talk about each of these systems briefly, and then I can answer any questions, perhaps how these pertain specifically to the US in follow-on questions. So briefly on the REEDS model, again, it's our Renewable Energy Deployment Systems model. It's a capacity expansion model which looks at scenarios of CSP and other renewable technologies and storage within at least the US grid network, starting with today, but looking all the way out to 2050. And the important element of this is that it looks at the regional mix of technologies, not looking at the lowest cost technology from a technology level, but looking at the lowest technology mix at the system level. And that's extremely important. We've used the REEDS model for our own CSP projections in the US, and I can get to this perhaps during the Q&A session, but on the right, we've exercised the REEDS model looking at CSP mixed with other renewable technologies, looking at a mix of scenarios, looking at deployment from today out through 2050. And depending on the scenario that we can look at high natural gas prices, low natural gas prices. We can look at low cost PV. We've looked at low cost batteries. Each of those will give us a different projection of what CSP might look like in the 2050 timeframe. You can take that a step back and look at production cost models, and production cost models are hourly or sub-hourly models that simulate the operation of a system more at the regional level, not necessarily at the whole US level, but we will look at the Western Interconnect, the Eastern Interconnect, the Texas grid, or even more refined than that. It looks at optimizing the system at an hourly or sub-hourly chronological level. It looks at how we optimize the dispatch of all of the generating units on the system, including CSP, looking at system demand, looking at the individual operating characteristics of all of the generators, and looking at the specific characteristics of the regional grid. What we're also seeing, that type of model, whether it's Plexos or other unit commitment models, is that they're increasingly being used for real-time operation of regional grids, planning real-time operation. We've used this model for CSP, and a good example is a study we conducted back in 2014, specific to looking at California back when they only had a 40% renewable portfolio standard. Now, of course, they're looking at 100%, and we're looking at CSP under that scenario. But using the production cost model, and many of you may have seen this, we valued CSP over PV at roughly 5 to 6 cents per kilowatt higher when you look at CSP with storage compared to PV without storage. Now, one has to ask the question about PV with batteries, and we also have information on that. Finally, the last model I'll discuss is the system advisor model, and that's available through a download at NREL. It's an hourly, also a sub-hourly model that looks at the performance of parabolic trough technology with storage, towers, linear Fresnel, solar process heat, and what we call generic CSP systems. But it also includes modeling PV, wind, biomass, geothermal, and ideally, Michael will start to look at pump thermal energy storage or Carnot battery type systems. We're trying to get that into the model soon. It looks at different financial scenarios for utility, commercial scale systems, residential systems for PV. It has a lot of advanced analysis capabilities, including scripting, parametric sensitivities, Monte Carlo statistical analysis, and it also now does optimized price taker dispatch of CSP systems with thermal energy storage. Another tool that we have under development, under support from the US Department of Energy, is a CSP PV hybrid renewable systems model. It's under development. It is not available yet, although we have worked with some folks to specifically analyze their technologies for certain markets. This is just an example of an in-house model that we developed for a CSP PV hybrid system in Chile. All of these reports, or most of the reports that I've at least alluded to, or models, can be found at NREL at this web link, and I believe these presentations will be made available. If you go to this web link, if you just type in under keywords, authors, Denholm, Jorgensen, or myself, or the keywords concentrating solar power, you'll find a number of studies going back quite a way. We've looked at capacity value of CSP plants, co-locating CSP and wind, analysis of CSP under the original California 33% portfolio. We provide guidelines to how to conduct these valuation studies using a production cost model, back to the 40% renewable portfolio standards, and then an update on the methods for analyzing the economic value, in this case specific to the Chinese grid. So we can do country-specific technical analyses. So with that, to summarize, utility planners use a suite of tools representing scales from seconds to years to make investment decisions. NREL has all of those tools available that have been customized to include CSP for that decision making. It's important that inadequate representation of CSP within those tools, I believe, can introduce significant barriers to the acceptance of CSP, at least in the long run. You can put out the first commercial plants without exercising those tools, but if you want to see significant penetration and justify it, generally you need to justify it with those kind of decision-making tools. And NREL has developed those tools, generally have been applied to the US grid, but we have applied those to other regions. We also have offered workshops on the use of these tools. A couple of years ago, we hosted a dozen people or so from Chile, for example, at NREL to learn how to use the various tools that we've offered, or even if they're using their own tools, how to represent CSP within those tools. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. That was excellent. And I think to be efficient, we will go straight to Luis Crespo.
Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Now you see?
Yes, thank you, Luis.
Okay, all right. So thank you, Heather. So I am very glad being with all of you, and but I am afraid that perhaps having heard to Michael's and Mark references to dinosaurs, I'm afraid that perhaps the audience may see that or may consider that we are in a Jurassic Park instead of the capstone program from the KIC program of the World Bank. But okay, anyhow, I would like to just to give you a breaking news. Since yesterday, I am officially retired. I have been in this field since late 70s. So if somebody can be named as dinosaurs, I think it's me.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So I am still the president of Proton Solar, although I am not any longer taking care of the day-to-day activities at the association. But I am more than pleased to share with you my thoughts that that are mainly. I mean, I will start with this first slide, which is going to be a kind of summary of what I would like to present to you. And I would love that perhaps some utility planners and policymakers will be hearing us. If it is not the case, I would like that all of you that feel, convinced or inspired by my slides, can use it freely, try to pass the messages I'm going to pass to you, to the policymakers in your country, trying to help the deployment of CSP at world level. So I am, my experience, or my presentation is mainly based, I have been many years in the past, trying to using the NREL's reports, which are very helpful, which are, very precise and rigorous and very well done, trying to say, okay, look to me, I am taller, more beautiful, and much stronger than PV, just pay me more. And I realized that the markets are not convinced with these kind of arguments. And policymakers hardly see the additional value of CSP. I recently succeeded in Spain just to place 5 gigawatts in the planning in Spain, but it was not because of these kind of arguments, but just because that as happened in DAY1 project, as we have been told by Paddy this morning, and also in Cerro Dominador, that we offer the lowest price for a specific demand, for a specific request. And I think we are, this is the focus of my presentation, is trying to convince everybody that comparing apples with pears is nothing, adequate. We can be compared with the price of PV. We are going to offer at a given time best price that any other renewables can offer. And that's why I think we can just approach the market telling that what you need is to have CSP because we are the cheapest for this specific service. And just by looking to this slide to this picture, did you realize that we have there in Spain around 20 plants of this size, in which we can store 1 gigawatt hour of electric power in such a thermal storage tank? Can you really guess which will be the cost of the battery system that can store the same capacity that we can store in those tanks, which are already existing and that we can use for storing energy whenever it is needed by the system? So that's why I did title my presentation "The Double Role That CSP plants Can Play on the Electrical System," because we can offer to the system first. The primary role is trying to be complementary, or trying to replace PV every day after sunset in sunny countries, every day just to replace PV production. Wind can be even much cheaper than us during the night, but wind can replace the PV production. Wind will be blowing as they were before sunset or after sunset, or more or less. But who is the renewable, which is the renewable technology that can replace PV every day after sunset? And the cheapest one is CSP. So this is the primary role. But the second role is just we can provide the storage systems that might be needed, precisely because we expect a large deployment of PV and wind. So we can just, with our tanks, we can provide at the same time a specific dispatch profile at the lowest price that any other technology can do for a specific window time. But at the same time, we can offer storage services much cheaper than anybody else. You may say that those tanks belongs to the CSP plants, and it is true. But what I would like to demonstrate to you is that we can enhance the appreciation of CSP plants, because we can offer what I put here: buy one and get one for free. So you just will buy one generation utility installation, which is the CSP plant, but you will get for free or almost for free one storage installation that can supply a lot of services to the storage, to the electrical system. So now the primary role, I'm not going to insist too much on that, is that, okay, we have plenty of wind and PV, and this is going to be more and more the case, but there is no utility batteries that can provide the role of supplying electricity after sunset. The missing piece for filling these gaps is decoupling solar collection with solar delivery. And this can be done by CSP plants. We can provide synchronous and absolutely firm supply with no deviation for the day ahead program from sunset till sunrise next day, no problem at all. But at the same time, and this is the strongest argument I would like to put on the table, is that we are the cheapest auction, the cheapest renewable auction to replace PV production after sunset every day. And the only thing that we need from policymakers is to say, we want to have generation CO2-free electricity. And if it is the case, there is no other support that we may require from them. If it is the case in sunny countries, we can just provide this without any problem. So, but the second role that perhaps is something that will be much more surprising to you is how we can provide with the same plans that we are providing the nighttime dispatch profile, how we can provide a strategic reserve for the system, just trying to help the system whenever the system is needing power the most, which at least in Spain, and I think in most of the industrialized countries, this usually happens in winter time around, I mean, from 8 to 10 o'clock in the night is where we see those very peaking demand profiles. And how our plants can provide this without any additional investments. Until now, when I talk to the system operator in Spain, they say, "Oh, Luis, I've been watching you since a long time ago, and every November, every 20th of November at 8 o'clock in the evening, I don't see you. Your plants are already closed and they are not operating at all." And it is true. The same happens with photovoltaics. This is because in Spain we are not get paid for a specific dispatch profile. The way in which we are get paid doesn't take into account the value to the system. But look into the figure to the right, in the right hand of the slide. Our plants in wintertime, parabolic trough plants, will have during 4 or 5 months more than 60% of the capacity of the storage free, and this can be filled with a hot tank, and we can just keep this no matter whether this day or the previous days or the previous week are being sunny or not. We can just have a store with no additional cost, with no additional investments. We can have this energy ready for supplying 2, 3, or 4 consecutive days in a row, just for providing electricity whenever the system is needed the most. And this can be done without any additional investment. So this is what I call a strategic reserve, and this can be offered to the system operators and to the system planners and to utility plants in Spain or everywhere in the world without any additional cost. And this is a very, very important value. But also I would like just to share with you some surprising comparisons with other storage alternatives. If you look into the tanks that I have already shown in the first slide, the cost for a 1 gigawatt storing capacity in batteries will cost around $400 million. And this, we have it already for free. We have 20 of these plants already in Spain, waiting for being asked for providing this kind of service. And this can be done without any additional investments. When you compare, this has been already told by Michael or by Mark. So if you look, which is the track record of all the storage which has been already put in service for the grid, for electrical storage in the grid, nowadays thermal storage is twofold larger than installed capacities in lithium-ion batteries. And when you talk about the storage, everybody's thinking on lithium-ion batteries, and nobody's thinking on storage. And this is not fair at all. So we are just, and this is something perhaps, excuse me, Heather, for this reference, a specific reference, but I think in the World Bank storage partnership, I think you have to pay a little bit more attention to thermal storage, okay? Then if I continue, with the comparisons, that sometimes they are, I mean, this may be an inconvenient truth for many of people that are considering storage only being connected to batteries. But right now the cost of the molten salt storage in our tanks is in the range of $35 per kilowatt hour, while in the battery systems the cost is around 10 times larger, and durability is still an issue. So perhaps in a 30 years lifespan of the plants, these batteries has to be replaced twice, perhaps. That's very important. But also, as I told you before, we can offer a strategic reserve, but even more, just simply by adding some electrical heaters to our tanks, we can just provide curtailment recovery and even daily price arbitration. So in case that the market is getting crazy, and we can see that there is a lot of difference between valley and peak hours on price in the electrical systems, for us will be very easy. Just at the same time that we are providing the night dispatch profile, we can just acquire, we can just buy, we can just gather or store electricity at a valley price, and we can deliver electricity at a peak price without any problem at all. So this can be done without any problem. And we can just to this extent, we can even replace the pumping stations, or the role that pumping stations are normally doing. And I don't think that perhaps pumping station may have a lot of opportunities to grow in many countries because of environmental issues. And just to give you an idea, the storage capacity of the 5 gigawatts, which has been foreseen in national Spanish plans, will cost, in addition, if you want to have the same capacity that we can offer to the system for free, just simply doing our job, which would be to dispatch the electricity during the night. If you want to have the same capacity that we can offer in addition to this night dispatch profile, you have to spend more than $20,000 million in batteries. So I think this is a very important fact that should be considered and should be, provide some additional appreciation on the role that CSP plants can provide. So in conclusion, I say that I repeat that the primary role of the new CSP plants will be to produce to replace PV after daytime. And many people have already spoke about the hybrid systems, which may be nice for specific, customers. But in my opinion, as PV is going to be deployed very fast in the next years, I think that the hybridization should be done at system level. So I don't think that anybody is going to ask for, at a large scale. So there may be some specific projects where perhaps this hybrid or combined, I wouldn't call them hybrid, but combined or co-located PV and CSP plants can be perhaps offered. They will some client that ask for it or for them. But in my opinion, the hybridization should be done at system level, at country level. And the second consideration is just, consider that with all the services that CSP plants can provide to the system, with no further additional investments, we can just, provide these values which has been already covered by all the studies that Mark has already presented to us, but in a much more simple way, simple words, we can just present these features that our plants can offer with very, very low investments, or even for some for some services even without any investment at all. There have been already this morning also some people talk about hydrogen, and okay, would be nice. I mean, the power to X, if X you will substitute the X by H2 by hydrogen, I think it's a nice idea. But this hydrogen, in my opinion, should be used for mobility or for industrial heat or for something like that. But using power to produce hydrogen and then to burn this hydrogen in combined cycles or in peaking or in gas turbines, open cycle gas turbines, in my opinion, this is not a good idea. What I think is maybe in the future, the best way, as Michael already presented, is to use in countries where sun is not too much available, power to heat and back to power. I think it's a very good idea. And even in countries where sun is shining brilliantly during the day, also we can just take very, very easily the curtailments of the lowest price at the daily market. We can just use it to put it into heat and then back to power, because we have already, our conversion system is already there and will not cause anything, will not cause any kind of further investment at all. So with this, I would like just to summarize, telling that buy one generation infrastructure and get one storage infrastructure for free, which I think is a very, very strong argument that can support the deployment of CSP in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luis. That was great. And I think it's everyone's honor to be on screen with you and participating in this as you go to retirement. So thank you. I want to say a special thanks to you and for a very distinguished career. So thank you. I'd like to ask Jonathan how many minutes we have for Q&A so that we can time this appropriately.
I think we should try to keep it to under 10 minutes.
Okay, all right, great. So I have a couple of questions. The first question that came in is for Christina, and it's also the most popular in terms of thumbs up. So I think I'll start with that one for you, Christina. The question was, can you give us some more numbers, a little bit more detail on the CapEx and OpEx of the different EPCs that you mentioned? So we can start with that, and hopefully, I don't see Christina, but hopefully she's there and can come in.
Well, this is a very complicated answer. I cannot give you this number because depend on a lot of factors, depend on the existing project, depend on the financing and condition, depend on the PPA, depend on logistics. It's not possible because also depend on policies. There are a lot of factors that was explained very well during the day, and it's not possible to define a value for CapEx and OpEx, sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I had a feeling it would be a very complicated response, but because it was a popular question, I thought I would ask, because clearly it's on people's minds. So thank you for shedding more light on that, at least. The next question I wanted to ask is for Michael Geyer, and it comes from one of the attendees who we know very well, Jonathan Walters. And thank you, Jonathan, for that question. Michael, it is, 5 years from now, do you expect the conversion of coal plants to renewables plus molten salts to be widespread, or will it be playing a relatively minor role? What's your expectation, Michael, or your prediction, I should say?
Well, I would say actually a month ago, before all this Corona started, I would say in 5 years from now, coal exit will become more widespread and widespread. And I think basically not because we want to do good for our next generation, but just because renewable gets cheaper than coal production. I mean, I just have the example in Chile, where we are analyzing a case to convert a coal plant into a storage plant. Just last April, there was inaugurated a brand new 375 megawatt coal plant, and they are shutting it down because it is not competitive, let's say, with the new solar electricity. So from there, I think competitiveness and cost are driving us this path. The same happened in Spain. They are closing coal plants earlier. The same happened in Greece, where they are closing down coal plants earlier. So I think it will become widespread. And I would also add that, let's say, in this transition time, using this investment in the coal plants so that they are not a lost asset, using infrastructure, staff, etc. The conversion into storage plant, I personally believe, is a very good option.
Thank you, Michael. Mark, the next question is for you, and you may have answered it online, and I apologize, but for the benefit of the rest of the group, someone asked, are US utilities serious about replacing coal plants that are being decommissioned with this hybrid mix? And you may feel like sharing your screen again and referring to one of your slides if you'd like, but you don't have to. But I wanted to get to that question because it was so nicely phrased. Is the US serious about this?
I would say, well, first of all, the US is very regional, right? We have our 3 regional grids, and we have all of our states, and each of those states have their own utility commissions. So every state has a different level of seriousness. In California, absolutely. In many of the Western states and the Eastern states, they're very serious about moving to a green energy mix. That by necessity means retiring coal plants in the future. And our models would show that is a very viable path forward, I would say. Are the utilities serious about replacing coal plants with CSP, with thermal energy storage, is another question. And the one slide I did show using the Reed's capacity expansion model shows that it can be a serious player in the Western Interconnect, at least assuming that CSP hits certain cost targets. And those cost targets were based on what we call the CSP sunshot pathway, which is very aggressive. But I should mention, and I think I mentioned this in my answer to that question, that we can also look at what we call the initial cost of entry. And in the US, in California specifically, if CSP can hit a value of somewhere, I'd say between 7 and 8 cents per kilowatt hour, and hit it reliably, then I believe, I know that utilities will take CSP seriously in this country.
Great, thank you so much. And Luis, with just a minute or so to go, I wanted to ask you a question about competitiveness. And specifically, do you think PV plants with 2 or 3 hours of battery storage would be a competitor for the new generation of CSP plants? Oh, and you're on mute.
I'm mute. Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah? Can you
yes,
hear
we
me?
can. Yes, thank
right.
you, Luis.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate this question, and that remembers me the time when I was just trying to sell my plants, telling that we are more valuable than just plants that will only produce when the sun shines. And the same question applies to this idea. Just, okay, would be nice. I have no doubt that a PV plant plus 2 hours of batteries will be much more valuable than a simple PV plant. But the question is anybody willing to pay while the sun shines double the price to this plant just because they have simply extended a couple of hours the generation? And so I don't consider that this is going to be worth, and I find that batteries will have an important role to play just by controlling voltage and just by controlling also frequency, which is going to be cost because of the large penetration of non-renewables. And this additional cost that the system needs is never going to be charged in the comparisons to the cost of PV or to the cost of wind. But this will be some needs that will be that will appear in the table because there will be a lot of penetration of wind and PV. But, you know, I think if you want to compare peers with peers, okay, just ask batteries to say, okay, will be charged by PV and just delivered exclusively when the sun sets until you may last. But in this case, well, I will be the comparison with PV, with CSP may be fair, And I am quite sure that at least in the next decade, we are going to be winners. And I hope, as Paddy already said this morning, that we are going to be, that the cost of CSP is going to be continuously going down. And when we reach the 4 cents or the 5 cents, I think nobody can compete with us for supplying or for replacing PV after sunsets. And okay, and will be 3-4 times more expensive than PV. Doesn't matter. You don't compare the price of the beer and the price of a coffee. They both serve for different purposes. And okay, if somebody is able to just to avoid the fossil backup after sunset, okay, I will be pleased. I will say chapeau, okay, and I will sportively say you are the winner. But I am completely sure that CSP is going to be the winner in sunny countries, and I hope that because of a large deployment of projects, also the cost of CSP is going to be reduced, never at the level that PV has, and we don't need just to be lower in price than PV. We need to be the lowest in cost for a specific service that the system needs, and this is our role. So that I don't consider that a couple of hours of expansion of PV activities may be worth, and I think nobody is going to pay for that. So if they ask only for being paid more when sunsets, okay, that will be all right. But they will ask for more price during the day because they say, I have more value than a simple PV system. And I'm sure that the market is going to buy this kind of projects.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you so much. And Belen, Jonathan, I think that's the end of our session. We don't want to go too far over time, but I want to thank again our excellent panelists. It was a fantastic conversation, and I'm so impressed with how this is working. You know, of course, I miss seeing everybody face to face and in person, but I'm just amazed that we're lucky to be living through this during this internet age, because this was, I felt very connected to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll sign off. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Christina, Heather, Luis, Michael, and Mark. Luis, I'm sure we'll see you again soon, despite your retirement. I challenge you to stay retired for more than 5 minutes. Let's now return to the countries that we started the day with, Jordan, Lebanon, Tunisia, and Morocco, to go to the nuts and bolts of the way forward. So